Well, describe the trial.
Well, at the trial, I was not allowed to present my evidence. I have those evidence showing that how this would be done if I had a chance to succeed. And also, if you are criminal, then you have to have a motivation why you want to do that. What's the reason behind this crime, so-called crime? So I want to tell the people at the court, say, well, the reason why I want to do that is because of the persecution. So many people have been tortured to death, and people had no way to know the truth. I came here to let people know the truth, and this is not against any law in China, because as I talked, there is no such a law against this tapping into the network, for breaking the program, and also my action is a correction to whatever they have been doing unlawfully to those Falun Gong practitioners. So I'm at the righteous side. So I want to say that my motivation, that kind of things, I want to show people how this would be done, but I was not allowed to do any of this. So there is a procedural law in China, made by, of course, by the Communist Party. So if the trial procedure is not right, is not lawful, then the verdict itself is not accepted, it's unlawful, too. So that's the result of the trial. So I appeared after the show trial, but they of course denied it. So then after that, they sent me to a prison in Nanjing.
So you appealed, but did they assign a defense attorney to you?
Oh, that's another very interesting story, because the Chinese Communist Party always trying to manipulate the medium and try to cheat people. The thing about the attorneys, what happened was that in China, no lawyer was allowed to defend any Falun Gong practitioners. That's kind of no for them. If they do that, they're going to lose their job right away. So in the very beginning, my brother found a lawyer, from my hometown, to defend me. Then they came to me, talked to me, saying that I cannot defend you as innocent. But what I can do is, trying to ask for the lenience from the court, say that you're guilty, but because you have not succeeded, and also because you're an American citizen, and because your attitude is good, so please be lenient, so things like that. So I told those lawyers that I cannot ask you to defend myself because that's not true. I'm innocent. So I had no lawyer at all, and then until one day before the trial, two lawyers came to me, from Yangzhou city, and they told me that they could do the defending for me as long as I accept their service. And they said this is appointed by the court. I thought about that because there's only one day left. What could they do? Okay, I said you could go look at my file and then tell me what you want to do on the day of trial. So 30 minutes before the trial, I met them. They told me they could do the innocence defending for me. I was kind of surprised that they could do that. I said, okay, let you have a try. So I did not realize that until I came back to this country. That was another trick used by the Communist Party, because after the trial, they told everybody, and they put this on newspaper, and they told the American government that Charles Lee was properly defended. Okay, but any of the words said by those lawyers were not taken at all by the court. Useless, totally useless. So, you can see the trick they played. Only one day before the trial, they sent two attorneys, talk to me like that. So I was, duped that in that way. So a lot of tricks, during this persecution, a lot of lies too. So, they try to manipulate, from all different levels.
All right, so now you are convicted of this serious crime and you're sentenced. What was your sentence?
The sentence was 3 years in prison. That was the maximum they could do, because I did not do anything, per se, because I was there and I tried to, but never got a chance. So their charge was intending to destroy, but never had a chance to destroy. I mean, in a sense, that's if you look at the words, that's not a crime at all. It's like I'm thinking about destroying some people's property or life, then I would be guilty of violating any law. It's not true. So that's the maximum they could do, because the law itself says if something happened, okay, the criminal could be charged 3 to 7 years in prison. could be sentenced to 3 to 7 years. That is, like the lowest to the extent, to what really something happened. But since nothing happened, so they say, they compare to that, they come to this charge. And they even, had the face come to me, say that they have been lenient to me, So anyway, 3 years in prison, so I was, sent to Nanjing prison, about 3 hours west of Shanghai city.
Well, describe that experience. What happened there?
Well, that is extremely depressive, actually. Extremely depressive, because I managed to escape in the first, for the first time, 3 months ago. So they had people watching me 24 hours a day. Through these 3 years, even if I was sleeping, there were still 2 people standing in front of my bed watching me. They also have like a surveillance camera in the cell I was in, and also the brainwash room. I was watched all the time for these 3 years. And then they also have some kind of sandwiching technique, which means they assigned 2 real criminals, like a rapist or like any like drug trafficker, that kind of criminals. They sandwich me, like give me this kind of space. Wherever I went, whatever I did, there would always be people watching me and sandwiching me like this. Even when I was taking a shower, they would be like standing behind me and watching me taking a shower. And a lot of times yell to me like, you should be hurry up because time is up. We have this activity, that activity to do. You have to hurry up. So they gave me pressure constantly. So that is one of those reasons why my heart had a problem 2 years later in prison. It was too much pressure. I could feel that all the time. And then they do the brainwash. They force me to to attend those anti-Falun Gong programs, and they force me to watch those TV programs. They force me to attend the brainwash. They read those articles defaming Falun Gong, glorifying the Communist Party, all that kind of things. They force me to listen. If I don't listen, they would push me. If I don't watch, close my eyes, they would poke me. All that kind of things. They also have kind of format called condemnation sessions. It is it was invented like during the Japanese invasion in China. At that time, the Communist Party did not fight against the Communist Party. Instead, they stayed in the northwest corner of China, trying to develop their own army. And in the meantime, they invented a lot of techniques, methods to persecuting people, to subdue the followers, so they can become the absolute master. So the condemnation session is like this. The victim will be surrounded by a group of people. These people would yell to you, call your name, say you're like snake, you're like so bad, you should be dead right now. Things like that all the time, one after another, because they take turns. So those people, if they get tired, they can go to another place to take a rest, but the other people would come replace them. So constantly, they just yell and they give this kind of pressure to these people. And during the Cultural Revolution and many other political movements in China, many people just committed suicide. They could not take this anymore because that's too much. They destroy your self-esteem. They destroy your self-respect. They make you feel like you are not a human being. You're like rats or some even worse rats. Nobody, So that is what they did to anybody who refused to give in.
And how long do those sessions go on?
Most of the time, it lasts for like 5-6 hours, and they say like they had also like I didn't mention the slave labor. Say like they forced you to work for 8 hours. When you went back to the cell, then they would have these condemnation sessions because you refused to sign this or do that, or you refuse to comply to all kind of so-called regulations on criminals. They'll do these condemnation sessions for hours and hours until you are really exhausted. Then you are not still allowed to sleep. They have like one group doing this, and then they left, and they had another group come in. They're fresh, they're just rested, and then they come in to continue doing these kind of things. So that's last for 3 years. All these kind of brainwashing sessions and slave labors. In the very beginning, they tried to force me to give up, my faith on Falun Gong, and they even used my mother to give me all that kind of pressure. Because my mother was having a chronic myelogenic leukemia, which was like, a blood cancer, and she had that for 80 years when I was arrested. So her condition was, very fragile. And when I was conducting the hunger strike, they used my mother. They came and say, like, my mother told me, what happened to her and my father, and after they got the news of my arrest, and how much blow, it was to them, and they did not really wish me to, stay in prison. They wished me well, of course, but the prison policeman would tell me that again and again, if you, sign an agreement like give up the Falun Gong, then you'll be released early, and so you can serve your parents, things like that. And I told my mother, this like, if I did that, I would be like living in humiliation for the rest of my life, and then you will be also living in humiliation for the rest of your life. It's against our conscience. But the Communist Party, they keep doing this to any people who refuse to give in. So that was actually that was the worst part in my prison life, because my mother died, while I was in prison. She could not take that anymore. She died in misery. The worst part was that my brother, called the prison and said that my mother was in a kind of terminal condition. It would be good to let me to go home and to visit my mother for the last time. And they waited, because my brother called and asked them to do that on 24th of January in 2005, but they waited for like 18 hours or something, more than that. And then on the second day, they allowed me to go back, but I was only 45 minutes late to see my mother for the last time. So that is another trick. You can see on the surface, they say they did their part to bring you, to your home, out of humanity or whatever, but they did intentionally. They let you to be late like 45 minutes. So you will regret it for the rest of your life. That's another psychological manipulation to make you suffer even more. If they didn't do that, I would feel better, because I didn't have a chance to go anyway. But right now it's even worse.